Since the most distant times, humanity has been fascinated by the extraordinary, the peculiar, and the inexplicable. Across various eras, those with unusual physical traits have been viewed, sometimes as oddities, sometimes as living wonders, but always as subjects of fascination and mystery. In the circuses of the 19th and early 20th centuries, these individuals found a place where they could alter their differences into a source of income, earning both admiration and exploitation. So join us as we look at the 15 disturbing circus freaks you won't believe existed. Number 15. Colonel and Mrs. Ruben Steer. Ruben Allen Steer was born in 1838 in Gloucester and by adulthood measured just 3 feet 8 inches tall, weighing only 43 pounds. He was marketed as Colonel and toured with Stone and Murray's Circus, Carl Stefan Bailey's Circus, and the Lilliputian Opera Company, traveling extensively across the U.S. In 1880, he married Rebecca Ann Myers, who was a fellow little person from Indiana, turning their union into a lifelong partnership both on stage and off. They continued performing until 1906, eventually retiring in Cheapshay, Rhode Island. But retirement didn't mean fading away. They ran a poultry farm, opened a restaurant, launched a candy store, and became woven into local life. Ruben even served as a truant officer, a job he reportedly handled with sharp intensity. To neighbors, he was more than a performer. He was part of the town's fabric. He passed in 1915, remembered not merely for his size, but for crafting a full life that blended spectacle with small-town resilience and purpose. He was not a giant, but a legend. Number 14. Pyramal Sami. Pyramal, known as the double-bodied Hindu enigma, was born in India in 1888 with a parasitic twin attached to his chest. To sell tickets, promoters dressed the undeveloped twin in girls' clothing and billed them as Pyramal and Sami, two siblings sharing one body. Early in his career, he toured with his cousin Subramanian Munsami, a little person, alongside performers harshly branded as pinheads, Gondia, and Apexia. Between 1900 and 1915, Sami worked with Ringling Brothers, drawing attention and mockery in equal doses. Reports suggest he struggled to adapt to American life, finding it exploitative and deeply alienating. In time, he returned to India, choosing distance from a business that reduced him to spectacle. His career exposes how circuses spun stories from real suffering, often erasing identity for profit. Sami's reluctant fame stands as one of history's more disturbing sideshow footnotes, a clear reminder of how human dignity was often discarded for curiosity, long before empathy took center stage. Number 13. Dick Hilburn. Dick Hilburn lived with an extraordinarily rare condition, only one fully formed limb, his right arm. Yet with that single arm, he pushed himself across carnival midways on a skateboard, capturing attention and applause. Dubbed the Quarter Man, his physical shape defined the title, but never the man. Hilburn went on to build his own traveling sideshow, hiring others like Carl Norwood, later remembered as the Frog Boy. Off-stage, he worked as a tattooist and sign painter, building self-sufficiency one brushstroke at a time. In an era with little compassion or accommodation, Hilburn never begged for sympathy. He carved out independence on his own terms. He passed away in 1971, not as a novelty act, but as a man who refused to quit. On stage, his name became synonymous with tenacity. In real life, it represented willpower, hard-earned skill, and unshaken pride in a body that refused to be limited by design. Number 12. The Octoman. Well, this one is a bit sad. Rudy Santos was born in 1953 in the Philippines with one of the rarest medical conditions ever documented. In the circus world of the 1970s and 80s, he was known as Octoman, a man with 4 arms and 3 legs. The cause? A parasitic twin fused to his torso, giving him an extra leg, 2 additional arms with shoulders, an undeveloped head on his chest, a second set of nipples, and even a stray ear with a tuft of hair. One of his own legs was deformed, forcing him to walk with crutches. In 2008, doctors offered surgery to remove the extra limbs, but Rudy declined. Poverty played a role, but so did a profound attachment to what had always been his body. He left the spotlight in the late 80s and lived in seclusion until his death from a stroke in 2023. He was survived by his great-niece, Emma Leftwich. Santos remains the oldest person ever recorded with this condition, defined by quiet strength. Number 11. The French Giant. Jean Behin came into this world in 1805 in Belgium and grew into a man hard to overlook. Accounts of his height varied. Some claimed nearly 7 feet, others closer to 8. But whatever the truth, his stature alone could command a room. More than just tall, he could sing, act, and perform feats of strength, often blending humor into his routines. By the 1840s, he was a sensation throughout Europe, and eventually sailed to America to join Barnum's American Museum. There, he famously clashed with another giant, Colonel Goshen, until Barnum interrupted the scuffle, only to sell tickets for a rematch. Behin acted in the theater, supported the Union during the Civil War, and toured endlessly. Yet behind the showmanship, his private life grew darker. A failed marriage ended amid allegations of cruelty, and during the Goshen fight, he was accused of racism. Charismatic but controversial, Behin died in 1873 and was buried in Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery, leaving behind a legacy as massive as his frame. Number 10. Celestia Guyire. Celestia Herrmann, later known as Celestia Guyire, gained weight rapidly during childhood, reaching 150 pounds by 6th grade and over 300 by the time she graduated high school. Marriage brought struggle when her husband lost his job, and in desperation, she joined a carnival. Under stage names like Dolly Dimples, Jolly Dolly, and the world's most beautiful fat lady, she rose to fame. At under 5 feet tall, she eventually reached 555 pounds, headlining with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey throughout the 1930s and 40s. A heart attack in 1950 nearly ended her career. Instead, she transformed herself. By adopting a strict baby food diet, she lost 443 pounds in just over a year. Dolly shifted from sideshow performer to educator, publishing a diet book, delivering lectures, and inspiring others with her turnaround. She lived many more years, a survivor in every sense. In 2014, long after her death, she was posthumously honored in Coney Island's Sideshow Hall of Fame. All right now, let's move to number 9. Kitty Smith. Kitty's life didn't begin with fame. It began in fire. Born in Chicago, she was just 9 years old when her drunken father held her arms against a scorching stove, causing burns so horrific that they had to be amputated. While she later called it an accident, court records say otherwise. Her father went free, but Kitty was placed in a home for disabled and impoverished children. There, she refused to surrender. She learned to write, sew, draw, type, and even craft furniture entirely with her feet. At 18, she wrote her story, printed pamphlets, and asked for just 25 cents. The public responded. She raised $35,000, 1 coin at a time. Only in her 40s did she join the sideshow circuit, performing with headliners like Ringling Bros, Coney Island, and John Robinson. Kitty wasn't born different. She was broken into it. But what she built from that damage was unforgettable. She didn't chase pity. She built her legacy with her toes. Number 8. Major Zamora. Major Zamora's real name and lifespan have vanished into obscurity, but his act left a lasting imprint. Standing just 32 inches tall, he became a fixture on the dime museum circuit during the 1890s, celebrated as a contortionist with triple-jointed limbs. His body's flexibility was so extreme, he could squeeze into impossibly tight spaces, drawers, trunks, even specially constructed glass bottles, then emerge with uncanny ease. Spectators likened him to an octopus, mesmerized by his fluid movement. He performed along New York's Bowery and later in St. Louis, where he met Tina Guffman, a fellow little person marketed as the world's smallest woman. Though taller than him, she married him in 1893, becoming Tina Zamora. Together, they toured across the country, their act built on a blend of chemistry and spectacle. Beyond these details, history leaves him in the shadows. Still, Zamora remains a prime example of how sideshow freaks use their own bodies as instruments of invention and entertainment. Number 7. The Frog Boy. Carl Norwood lived with a form of dwarfism that left his limbs twisted, shortened, and fragile, but pity never made it into his act. Known on stage as the Frog Boy and sometimes the Frog Man, he turned his condition into a steady career filled with claps and cash. For years, he partnered with another performer named the Quarterman, Dick Hilburn. After Hilburn passed away in 1971, Carl continued under the care of Hilburn's widow, then later joined Ward Hall's show. He toured until retiring in Atlanta, where he passed at just 37. Carl never hit the spotlight or the headlines, but among the community, he was respected. A quiet showman who arrived on time, did the job, and kept it moving. He didn't speak loud or take center stage, but his presence was steady and respected. Carl Norwood turned physical fragility into stable work and made it look easier, sharper, and more joyful than anyone expected. Number 6. The Mule-Faced Woman. Grace McDaniels lived with a facial deformity so extreme it earned her the cruel moniker, the Mule-Faced Woman. Promoted as the ugliest woman in the world, it was treated like some twisted badge of distinction. Her condition made her features visibly distorted, enough that people recoiled at first glance. But behind the disfigurement stood a gentle, soft-spoken woman who carried herself with quiet pride. She married, raised a son, and kept working despite the endless stares. Her son didn't inherit her condition. Instead, he spiraled into drinking, petty crime, and constant legal trouble. In the end, it was he, not Grace, who brought public disgrace. Grace remained a staple of the sideshow scene until her death in 1958, respected by fellow performers for her endurance. Her life serves as a stark reminder that outward appearance rarely tells the full story. Grace McDaniels withstood a lifetime of ridicule with a composure that outshone the very crowds who paid to stare and judge. All right, now, let's move to Number 5. The Alligator Girl. Esther Parnell was born in 1926 in Kenley with ichthyosis, a rare condition that made her skin appear cracked, scaly, and thickened. Alongside her brother Bill, who also had the disorder, she was displayed in Joe Hilton's sideshow during the 1940s under the moniker Alligator Twins. Audiences gawked at her skin, but Esther carved out a livelihood from it. In 1947, she married musician Thomas Blackman, and the couple began traveling independently. A year later, she had her first child and began billing herself as the world's strangest mother. Eventually, she had 7 children, balancing life under the spotlight with motherhood. Esther performed up until 1982, sustaining her career beneath the carnival tents. During the 1970s, she even appeared in 2 horror films, The Mutations and The Sentinel, where her real-life act was captured on screen. She passed away in 2003, remembered not just as a sideshow performer, but as a resilient woman who raised a family while carrying the weight of public spectacle. Number 4. Labosu. Victor Hugo's Hunchback of Notre Dame may not have been pure invention. Deep in 19th century Paris, A real-life figure may have worked inside the very cathedral Hugo wrote about. A British researcher unearthed a memoir that references a hunchbacked stone carver employed at Notre Dame during the same years Hugo penned his novel. Among co-workers, he was known simply as Labosu, the hunchback. Quiet but talented, he contributed to official restoration projects, carving details into ancient stone. Given Hugo's close involvement with the cathedral and its artisans, it's entirely plausible this figure left an impression that shaped literature. No direct records confirm it, but the overlap between fiction and fact is hard to ignore. Labosu may never have rung cathedral bells, but his silhouette may still echo, etched in history, immortalized through story. Sometimes real people fade into shadows while their fictional reflections become immortal. And maybe in this case, both are made of stone. Number 3, the Scandinavian giant. Clifford Thompson was born in 1904 and grew into a man who seemed too tall for any room. Promotional posters claimed he stood 8 feet 7 inches, though the truth hovered closer to 7.5, still towering by any standard. He spent 8 years on the circus circuit, first with Al G. Barnes and later Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey, before branching into other ventures. His towering frame made him perfect for advertising, and soon he was promoting everything from milk and beer to footwear and automobiles. In middle age, he pivoted once again, studying law, earning a degree, and practicing as what many called the tallest attorney in history. Hollywood noticed too, casting him in seal skins and murder in the private car. Thompson longed for the title of tallest man alive, even challenging Robert Wadlow, only to be visibly outmatched. He died in 1955, remembered as driven, versatile, and always searching for something bigger. Number 2, Joan Wisnant. We rely on our hands, but Joan Wisnant never had any. That never stopped her from mastering the essentials of living. Born without arms, she developed quiet poise and 2 feet that learned to move with startling precision. Where others saw limits, she built skill. As a child, she used her toes to write, cook, comb hair, sew fabric, and strum guitars. Her parents refused to sell her into the sideshow world, but Joan didn't hide from view either. She took her talent to state fairs and Ripley's stages, placing the guitar like it belonged there. When a boy once laughed, she just smiled and played louder. She never missed a chord. Crowds expected sorrow but left with silence and awe. Her music wasn't just melody, it was defiance wrapped in grace. Joan passed away in 1998, without apologies or regrets. She didn't conform. She didn't retreat. She built beauty where others expected struggle, and the song still echoes. Number 1, the human owl. Martin Lorello, born Martin Emmerling around 1886, made a career out of a talent both fascinating and unsettling. He could rotate his head nearly 180 degrees, earning him the moniker the human owl. He started performing in Europe during his 20s before immigrating to the United States in 1921, where Coney Island became his launching pad. He later toured with Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and Dick Best's Royal American shows. Audiences were left speechless by his flexibility, which seemed anatomically impossible. By the 1940s, he was still on the sideshow circuit, appearing with Ripley's alongside other oddities like Popeye Perry and Junior Stiles, a child dubbed Lobster Boy. His personal life remains largely undocumented, but his act etched itself into the annals of sideshow history. Lorello's career spanned decades, and his bizarre talent reminded onlookers that human anatomy could blur the line between marvel and discomfort. He continued performing into the mid-1940s, leaving behind a legacy twisted in every sense. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.